Assalamu alaikum, salam sejahtera, and a very good afternoon, everyone. We are back, and I'm still the MC for today, Rauda here with you. Welcome back to the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty conference, organized by Ayyash and Sejahtera in partnership with the UNDP and the World Bank Group. A very exciting afternoon awaits us, and I'm very pleased to announce that we have with us here now in attendance live Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohammed, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Economy. Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri, everybody has been anticipating your presence and your speech for today, so I am not going to steal any more of your limelight. Without further ado, I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohammed, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Economy, to grace us with a special keynote speech. Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri, the stage is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon. Tan Sri 𝘋𝘰𝘩𝘢𝘢𝘐𝑺, Chairman Board of Trustees, IDEP Sejahtera, Mr. 𝘔𝘰𝘩𝘢𝘢𝘡𝑟𝑒𝑐𝑡𝑖ve Resident Representative Malaysia, Singapore and Brunei Darussalam, Dr. 𝘔𝘰𝘩𝘢𝘢𝘡𝑟𝑒𝑐𝑡𝑖ve, Country Manager for Malaysia, the World Bank Group, distinguished speakers and participants of the IDEP 2021. Firstly, I would like to apologize for causing some inconvenience to you due to the postponement of my keynote address, which was meant to take place this morning. I would like to thank Ayyash and Sejahtera for inviting me to this International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, or IDEP conference. I also would like to thank the co-organizers, namely UNDP and the World Bank. The International Day for Eradication of Poverty, IDEP, reminds us of our commitment as global citizens to work towards meeting the first sustainable development goal, which is no poverty. Since the inception of the IDP conference by Ayyash and Sejahtera in 2014, this has been an important platform for discussion and knowledge sharing on the poverty eradication agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon after the presentation of our 12th National Plan in Parliament, today's discussion is important for us in the Economic Planning Unit. Since its tabling, this is the first audience I've had with CSOs dedicated solely to eradicating poverty. The government is serious in working together with CSOs to achieve our common goal of ending poverty. Going forward, we will be engaging with some of you in the near future to share our implementation agenda in respect of poverty eradication. For Malaysia, poverty continues to dominate our development agenda, particularly since the launch of the new economic policy in 1971. Malaysia has succeeded in reducing poverty from around half of total households in 1971 to 5% in 2019. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has reversed some of Malaysia's gains and further exacerbated existing social and economic inequalities. An additional 12.5% of households reported an income less than 2,500 per month in 2020. Around 20% or 580,000 households in the M40 income group have regressed into the B40. As a result of the pandemic, as you know, the national poverty rate has risen to about 8.4% last year. Ladies and gentlemen, among the strategies in the plan for eradicating poverty include improving access to essential services in the rural areas, increasing income and uplifting the standard of living of the poor, addressing urban poverty, strengthening the service delivery mechanism, and narrowing household inequality. In the next few weeks, the government will set up dedicated poverty units at the federal and state levels to support the poor among the B1, as well as integrate and centralize a database on poverty. Both these efforts will require close collaboration between the government, CSOs, and the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, poverty is not a one-dimensional issue. It is multidimensional. No longer is basic food requirements the sole determinant of who is poor. We must also take into consideration other key factors such as housing and access to basic education and healthcare. In this connection, we committed during the 12th plan to construct 500,000 affordable homes to provide quality housing for the B40 and M40. The government has also identified about 150 dilapidated schools, to be replaced with a total cost of 1.6 billion ringgit this year and next year. Besides that, we are committed to expanding access to healthcare with 12 new hospitals promised to be built during the planned period. The government will continue bridging the gap between urban and rural health facilities, which is why more health clinics will be built and upgraded, especially in the rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic has reaffirmed the important role of CSOs. I consider many of you listening in today as frontliners who have played and will continue to play an important role in providing emergency aid and relief, not just to affected communities, but also to hospitals, clinics, and welfare homes. The government is grateful for the surplus of deeds. The country is grateful to each and every one of you who led and took action to save, protect, and nurture lives, especially during the pandemic period. The government recognizes CSOs as our development partners. Indeed, the 12th plan aims to institutionalize the role of CSOs in various governance mechanisms, especially in implementation and monitoring of development programs at the grassroots level. Already, I've established the Poverty Circle at the Economic Planning Unit. The group is comprising of members from the government, CSOs, and the private sector in order to regularly monitor the country's progress in eradicating poverty. In the 4 sessions we've had in the past 4 months, we have done a lot from our colleagues on how to be more effective in our delivery mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, a structured and coordinated framework for collaboration will ensure the effective deployment of resources for the government, the private sector, and CSOs. This will help reduce overlaps and redundancies, ensuring that help is delivered to those most in need. Besides that, we also need speedy and effective implementation driven by data and defined by outcomes at the grassroots level. We must work together in order to rid our country of the scourge of poverty. A decent standard of living is a human right. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to act with urgency and resolve the issue of poverty. Time is of the essence. The pandemic has exacerbated this issue, and it is time for all of us, the government, private sector, and CSOs, to step up and collaborate more closely to eradicate hardcore poverty. In order to have greater impact, we must work smartly and pool our resources together. Collaboration is key. I must thank 𝘔𝘂𝘵𝘢𝘄𝑪, the UNDP, and the World Bank for their commitment to poverty eradication and sustainable development in Malaysia. You have been very important players in our national efforts, and we look forward to impactful collaboration with your institutions in eradicating hardcore poverty in Malaysia by the year 2025. I wish all speakers, local and international, and all participants a fruitful discussion across jurisdictions. I would like to say our goal is one, ending poverty in all forms, everywhere. On that note, I thank you.
Terima kasih, and thank you, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri. It was an incredible speech indeed, and I must say what you mentioned in your speech in regards to collaboration when it comes to eradicating poverty is in line with our conference theme today, which is one of them is partnership is key to poverty eradication. Now, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri would like to request for you to stay on the stage for a short Q&A with the audience, because they are all anticipating to speak to you. And for this, I'd like to invite yet again to the stage Puan Shireen Chariza, the Chief Executive Officer of Yayasan Sejahtera. Puan, you may steer the ship from here.
Thank you, Rauda. Thank you, YB Datuk Seri, for your kind words and your support for our event, and of course for the agenda in poverty eradication. We have been glued to the screen listening to your intervention, and of course with the Malaysia plan, the 12 Malaysia plan coming out, there's a lot of anticipation to see how the CSOs can collaborate with government, and your poverty circle is the stewardship that you provide for us to look at how we can work together to shape policies. Datuk Seri, there are some questions in the morning which I am going to recap for this afternoon. We talked about inclusive development, policies towards inclusive development, and we had speakers from the disabled community, and they are the top priorities they wanted to understand from you. How do what are some of your top concerns and your top action items towards including people with disability in the action on the ground? Thank you, Dr. Sri.
People with disabilities represent, of course, a very important component of our population. If I'm not mistaken, there's about 500,000 of them registered with the government. And I've been informed also that probably about 20% of them are registered, and many of them are not registered, which means there are many more out there which are not within the scope of government assistance. So a priority would be getting more people with disabilities to get themselves registered. The other is when it comes to strategies and programs and initiatives, it's got to come from every segment. It's not just government. There's a policy in government to have 1%, if I'm not mistaken, or at least 1% of its workforce coming from the disabled people with disabilities. So one priority perhaps for government is to have a quick survey of which departments are lacking in terms of fulfilling this objective. That's one. But the other will be we've got to go beyond government. The private sector has done a lot as well. There was a time when the government did not bother about our colleagues who are disabled. There was a time that the private sector wasn't giving much attention. So I think what's important is that we need to have data. We need to have correct data as to how many are in the government service working with government, how many in the private sector, and that way we're in a better position to monitor progress. I know that the relevant ministry, which is the Women Development Ministry, I'm sure have got data on this, quite up to date. Next will be to see how we can help them improve their economic status. It's got to do with economic activities suitable to their disability. Some disabled people probably have got the energy, the resources to advance in society. Some others are not well equipped, and therefore we need to help them. So the priority will be to get a proper data system. Secondly, to understand what the gaps are in government and private sector. And thirdly, to come up with effective strategies to raise the income levels of our citizens with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. That's a wonderful piece of news for some of our partners who have day-to-day struggles. I'm going to push it to a little bit more macro now. Enrolling the 12th Malaysia plan, Dr. Sri, there is a mention of district unit heads who will coordinate humanitarian efforts. What are your thoughts on how the CSOs can be involved in this framework or this ecosystem so that we can work together more effectively and deliver impact in a collaborative manner?
There's been a lot of collaboration between government and CSOs. There's no doubt about that, but there's certainly room for improvement. We still have instances of families getting assistance a few times over. We still have instances of people being excluded. So this is an example of how we need to be data-driven. So the priority will be data. The government is sorting things out. In about a month from now, we'll have the one-stop center, one center which gathers all the information about families getting help from the various government agencies, including CSOs as well. There have been instances in the past where people have been getting lots of assistance, and some others have not been getting assistance at all. I have personal experience in this early 2015, aftermath of the big flood in Kelantan. I was directing relief efforts then, relief and other assistance programs. For about 10 days, I was responsible for directing the effort, and later on, I was doing this only with the 𝘔𝘠𝘓𝘵. But anyway, we found that some families were getting a lot of help, especially those who are easily accessible. Flood means, when there's a flood, there's some bridges which have been disconnected. So those who happen to be near roads and other facilities have been getting a lot of help, but those in the remote areas, some of them have not been getting as much help. So this is one example. So one is to enhance collaboration. Data is important. And the other is to coordinate our efforts. The Majlis Agama Islam, for example, they do a lot of work in every state. Some individuals are doing a lot of work, CSOs, of course. I think we are we are not doing this too efficiently in terms of coordination. So I consider it to be a priority. That's why I've sounded in my officers. I told them I would like to see some of you in the very near future to have a better understanding of, firstly, to see how we can get CSOs to be involved in the implementation mechanism, in delivering all kinds of assistance to help the poor, so that we can avoid duplication of work, make sure that no one is excluded. So that's probably a priority for us here in the context of the 12th Malaysia Plan, where we've decided, we've been, as I said, we've been collaborating, but I think we have to institutionalize this collaboration. We are coming up with a model, and hopefully in a few weeks' time, I'll be able to have this meeting so that we can enhance collaboration between CSOs and government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. There's a question from Abdullah Fahim. Mengurus kemiskinan adalah satu perkara yang besar, namun ia adalah penting untuk membangunkan pembangunan masyarakat yang berkualiti terlebih dahulu. Adakah program capacity building kepada pembangunan masyarakat juga diberi perhatian? Is there focus on capacity development and capacity building in nation building, membangunkan pembangunan rakyat? Thank you.
It's got to be comprehensive. Anything that you do has got to be holistic. And we talk about holistic approaches. It's got to do with money. The bottom line is resources. Resources can be in a few forms: one, material resources, another financial and human resources. I think in terms of human resources, there's enough people out there who are doing a lot of work in this area, who are very committed and dedicated, spending almost their whole life in helping the poor. Government, of course, has got limited resources, especially in this pandemic period. So that's a big issue, but it is important to prioritize. I mean, we're doing schools, hospitals, and roads and other infrastructure, digital infrastructure now. The question of priority. So we have to make sure that poverty eradication gets a high priority, and it's got to be holistic development, including capacity building, of course. To be fair, we've done a lot. Some of them are not being felt directly. Schools, I mean, that's a form of capacity building. Training, I mean, we are helping the poor, the 𝘔𝘰𝘗𝘢𝘢 a lot in terms of scholarships, in terms of free meals in primary schools, for example. There are programs in schools. So that's capacity building in some way, but some of these things are not seen, not visible. Yeah, that's part of capacity building. In my view, training is important, of course. Education is key. And if you talk about the orang asli community, my view is the key to resolving some of the issues, not all of course, is education. If you're able to deliver good education to our orang asli communities throughout the country, then you will be able to lift them out of poverty. So this is one area where capacity building is essential. I mean, this is certainly one example. So education is key, and it's not just any kind of education. It's skills. I mean, lots of skills are being required now. We're not producing enough skills in some categories, and it's important to make sure that those skills which are in high demand are being taught in our TVET institutions, for example. So this is the education. I think is key to all this, and in terms of capacity building, we're doing a lot, but some of them probably are not visible to the public.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. I know you're very passionate about development for young people in the time that we've worked together in the past. There is a question from Natasha Sharif. Her point is, Dr. Sri, you mentioned having the relevant data. How is government supporting the efforts of collating micro-level data? Because sometimes at the very, very grassroots level, a lot of the support is given through NGOs, but unfortunately, maybe the data doesn't sort of rise up at the policymakers who are thinking about these very important issues.
Any policy has got to be data-driven, of course, and about a year ago, the Department of Statistics, in collaboration with the Implementation and Coordination Unit, ICU or JPM, started work on this under the leadership of our Chief Secretary of the Government to build up a database. And a few days ago, we were given a report, and I personally have been following up because the Statistics Department is one of the agencies underneath. And that's why I say, in about a month's time, they are setting up space. It's there. It's about to go live. What they've done is to collect data from all government agencies. Yeah, so more than 20 ministries and agencies involved in in poverty eradication and social assistance. It's not just the welfare department, many other scholarships, that's a form of assistance. The various grants given during the pandemic period, those are also financial assistance. But the challenge is to how to, they've also collected data from some CSOs, from Majlis Zakat, but they've not completed the database coming from the states. So we believe this platform has got a lot of promise. They have done a lot of work, a bit more, probably 20% of the work. They've got 20% more to go before they complete. But we think in about a month's time, we're in a position to launch this platform. The idea is this will be a single reference. Any department which has got facilities or financial assistance for various categories of poor will be able to refer to this particular platform. And in the event that this household only getting, say, three, four forms of assistance, that would certainly be a relevant consideration in whether that can be deserves help. The challenge, of course, is CSOs, and we hope to be able to do this. I mean, because we know that some CSOs they do not want to be in the limelight. They prefer to do things quietly, and some families might not be revealing the truth as well. So these are some challenges. But it is important to get accurate data from the government, both federal and state government, from the private sector. There's some foundations belonging to individuals and companies which are doing a good job. So and also private individuals. So all these data have got together. We hope to be able to do that and bring the cooperation of CSOs to get data from at the micro level. And actually, we have the village leaders, for example, the Pulu. They know who's who. They know the number of people staying in a house, for example. They know who's sick, who is not staying at home. So this is, there's a lot of information. It's a question of getting together. So I would say the village chiefs would be one very important source of data when it comes to micro level data that you were referring to your question.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. We've got a couple more minutes, so a couple more questions from the youth who are dialing in as well. There's a digital divide, especially amongst youth who are perhaps mainly in the rural location, and of course living in impoverished condition. And this is the domino effect. They're in the low income group. They don't have access. How is it? What are some of the views and observations, and indeed policies that you're thinking about to ensure access to the young people who are outside of the urban centers and have struggled trying to get connected, even for education or other activities if they are engaged in economic activities that requires digital connectivity?
Sharon, this has been a big issue in the pandemic. Digital access is now, we consider this to be a public amenity, like water and electricity. Those days it's just water and electricity. Those are considered to be essential requirements. Now we've added digital infrastructure to the list. It's important to have this aspiration. We're not there yet, but with JENDELA rollout, with better internet facilities, the MCMC has done a lot of good work on the ground, the Multimedia Commission. In the last time, I would say the pandemic has intensified our initiatives to deliver digital infrastructure to the remotest parts of Malaysia. We're not there yet. Sabah Sarawak, or honestly, they are setting up some satellite connections in the largest settlements. So the pandemic has been a big, driving force, big motivation for us to do a lot more. So a lot of things are happening on the ground. The erection of new towers, telco towers in many parts of Malaysia, enhancement of those towers. But of course, wherever you go, it is an issue. And hopefully within 2 years, we'll be able to resolve some of these problems. Next will be, what is the infrastructure? There is access to gadgets, mobile phones and laptops and others, and that's got to do with incomes. The 𝘔𝘰𝘗𝘐, 𝘔𝘰𝘗𝘐 is a big chunk of Malaysia, and many of them can afford. Some have 5 children, 10 children. We have, for instances of 10 children sharing a smartphone when going through classes delivered during the pandemic period. The schools are going to begin to reopen in the next few days, so that will help improve the situation. But digital online learning has become the norm. So hopefully within 2 years, I hope things will get better. So still, it is a problem now. A lot's been done in the last few months during the pandemic. We're not there yet. This has become very essential, and we are aware that there is a lot more that needs to be done.
Dr. Sri, you've been so generous with your time. There's so many questions coming through, and I know you need
one more.
Okay, good. Thank you. This one is about this deinstitutionalization of children in our country. So poverty is a major reason for families who maybe send their children to homes and all that, and there's some obviously neglect there because they don't have families that will help them and allow them to grow in a natural fashion. This is from Puan Arya, Datin Arya actually, and it's known that children growing up in homes or institutions will never grow up to be successful human beings. There's data and research on that. How do we include that major sort of issue in the next Malaysia plan, and what are the roles of government and CSOs? Tough one, Datuk Sri, but we would love to hear your thoughts.
You're right, Sharif. I mean, it's not an easy question. First, I think data is important. In the current period, we have precise data on how many children, lost their, fathers and mothers, for example. I think probably, I'm not mistaken, at least about 1,000 young children have lost both parents. Many more, of course, not every one of them, father or mother, more than 5,000 parents. So there's good data there. But my point is, I think it's important to get data. So data is in the institutions, of course. There are a few homes for the children, abandoned children in some cases. Wilayah has got some pets. So one is to has a grasp of how extensive the problem is. It has been handled in many ways by the welfare department, for example, and some charitable organizations as well. Yeah, I think as we want to be a high income nation by 2025, and we're almost there. We're supposed to be a developed nation by 2020, which was last year. We missed the target, and now it's going to be 2025. And it doesn't make sense for Malaysia to be a high income nation when we neglect some sections of the Malaysian community. It doesn't make sense when we're hardcore poverty. We are a high income nation, but we have hardcore poverty. It doesn't make sense to be a high income nation if people haven't got food on the table, for example. So these are indeed very important issues. And as we all know, our desire is to be a high income nation 2025. There are many things we need to do to get there. We actually have 4 years to go. 1 year is almost gone. So you can see how challenging it is for us in government to meet some of the aspirations outlined in the Malaysia plan. But we are committed to do those things. But my point is, we have to work together. I think we have the resources. We combine the resources of government, private sector, and CSOs. It comes to quite a big amount. And certainly, one is the amount of money. The other is combining the human resources and the experience coming from many segments of many parts of Malaysia. I think that will assist us in achieving the agenda of eradicating hardcore poverty by 2025 and leaving no one behind, including children, who are dependent, including people with disabilities and the marginalized communities of Malaysia. So Shireen and Tan Sri Faizah, thank you so much for this opportunity to us. I wish you all the best. I hope I've been quite useful in sharing some of my thoughts on this. And this is a very important subject for all of us. The subject is dear to many of us. It's a very important agenda, and I'm glad that you have done a wonderful work. Keep up the good work. See you soon. So, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Thank you, Datuk Sri. All the best and take care.
Thank you so much, Puan Shireen, for anchoring the Q&A, and terima kasih Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa for actually making the time to be with us today. Now, that was really lovely, and I'm sure a lot of you are very much spirited to keep going and of course, to continue the agenda of eradicating poverty in our country.